Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. In the 3rd year of my marriage to Ethan Carter, he met his soulmate. To give her a proper title, he used every possible method to force me into a divorce. My family was ruined, I fell into severe depression, and eventually on a rainy night I was hit by a truck and killed. Meanwhile, his precious darling was under his meticulous protection. I never even had the chance to see her face. Reborn into the same life, I decided to give up and wait for the divorce, planning to leave before it happened. But unexpectedly, Ethan wouldn't let me go so easily this time. The banquet hall was filled with a mix of chatter and laughter. I sat quietly in a corner, listening to a young actress, Ella Chun, chatting with her manager. "Why don't you go and say hi to Ethan Carter?" her manager asked. Ella's expression faltered slightly. "Mr. Carter doesn't like being too high profile," she replied. Her manager chuckled. "True, a man like him naturally becomes the center of attention in any crowd. If the paparazzi catch anything, it wouldn't be good for you. He's protecting you." Ella's face turned red and she said shyly, "Mr. Carter is very good to me. Just a few days ago, when I said my car broke down and was sent for repairs, he immediately gave me a new one. Lately, he's even been asking where I'd like to buy a house." The manager sounded envious. "Well, keep it up. Mr. Carter likes you so much. Make sure you win him over. After all, his wife is just a figurehead." I swallowed a bite of chestnut cake. That so-called figurehead wife they were talking about was me. But it's no wonder they looked down on me. In the 3 years of my marriage to Ethan, his rumors with other women never stopped. Though he wasn't in the entertainment industry, his name always appeared in the gossip columns. In my past life, hearing such discussions would have left me furious, demanding explanations. Now reborn, these words no longer stirred any waves in my heart. After all, I knew that all these women were just fleeting distractions for Ethan, and his true love would appear today. Strangely, I hadn't seen her yet. Feeling bored, I was about to leave when Ella let out a sharp scream. A waiter had accidentally spilled champagne, splashing it onto Ella's white designer dress. Her face instantly darkened. "What are you doing? This is Ellis's couture from this year. Get your manager here right now." The young waitress, her eyes brimming with tears, apologized repeatedly in a soft voice, explaining that she was just a summer intern. But Ella refused to let it go. Feeling sorry for the waitress, I sighed and said, "Don't make it hard for her. I'll compensate for the dress." Ella raised her brows, sizing me up. Seeing my understated and casual outfit, she clearly didn't take me seriously. "Big words, huh? Do you even know what haute couture is? Do you think you can just buy it with a bit of cash?" The commotion caught Ethan's attention. He frowned and walked over. Ella, seeing her savior, immediately clung to his arm and said pitifully, "Mr. Carter, the haute couture dress you gave me was ruined." Ruined by this waitress. The young waitress froze when she saw Ethan. Ella noticed and smugly lifted her chin. I smirked faintly, watching Ethan. "It's just a dress, I'll pay for it," I said. Ethan shot me a cold glance before turning to comfort Ella softly. "It's just a dress. I'll get you a new one later. You should head back now." He left with Ella, leaving the young waitress standing there in a daze. I always knew Ethan was irresistible to women, but I hadn't expected even such a young girl to be captivated by him. I glanced at the waitress with a hint of pity and turned to leave. Just then the girl called out to me, "Ma'am, thank you so much for today. Could I add you on WeChat and treat you to a meal someday?" I waved her off. "It's nothing. Don't worry about it." As I was about to leave, the floor manager approached and scolded her softly. "Lila Moore, how could you be so careless?" It felt like a bolt of lightning struck my mind. I turned sharply to look at the girl. It was her. She was Lila Moore, the woman Ethan had once been willing to destroy everything for, even severing ties with his family to force me into a divorce and give her a title. My family had an alliance with the Carter family, and a divorce would have entangled countless interests. But Ethan didn't care. He was determined to leave and even offered me an extremely generous financial settlement. Unfortunately, back then I couldn't let go. I didn't want the money. I only wanted him. I had loved him for 6 years. Why should some random girl come out of nowhere and take him away so easily? In my previous life, I tried every method possible to avoid a divorce, pushing Ethan Carter further and further away until we became adversaries. In the end, he used ruthless means to force me into signing the divorce papers. Loving him but unable to have him, I spiraled into despair and ultimately met a tragic end. Reborn, I no longer wanted to play the role of the bitter, spiteful supporting character in someone else's story. I refused to let someone who didn't love me make me feel worthless or question my self-worth ever again. I remembered how, upon learning of Lila Moore's existence in my past life, I had done everything I could to meet her. Ethan found out and immediately warned me. If I dared to approach her, he would terminate all cooperation between the Carter family and the Jung family. I cried and asked him, "What does she have that I don't?" He looked at me with disgust and said, "Lila is pure and innocent, the embodiment of everything good. Other than being less refined than you, she surpasses you in every way. This time, Reborn, I've come to understand many truths. Love, for instance, defies reason. I bet on him once and lost. Now I've learned to accept my defeat. But still, I couldn't completely suppress my curiosity. I wanted to see for myself what kind of person Lila was, how she could be so extraordinary. Looking at the delicate, beautiful girl in front of me now, I had to admit that she did indeed embody the word lovely. Broke my thoughts as she called my name. "Are you adding me on WeChat?" On an impulse, I agreed, pulling out my phone to scan her code. The banquet eventually came to an end, but the night was still young. Today was actually my birthday. In previous years, I'd spent the evening in the empty villa, meticulously preparing a table full of dishes. I'd hold on to the faint hope, what if he remembered to come home? But every year I waited in vain. I'd find excuses for Ethan's absence, blow out the candles on my own, and softly whisper to myself, "Happy birthday, Jenna." I always believed that sincere effort would eventually move even the hardest heart. After so many years, even a block of ice should have started to melt, but Ethan's heart was colder than steel. This time around, I was done waiting in that empty house, clinging to foolish hopes. Before I met Ethan, waiting for someone was one of the things I hated most. Resolving to let go, I instructed the driver to turn around and head to Arctic Sea Bar. On the way, I unexpectedly saw Ethan's car parked by the roadside. Next to it lay a toppled bicycle, suggesting an accident. Upon closer look, I noticed Lila Moore sitting on the ground, blood visible on her leg. Ethan was supporting her while speaking to Ella Chan through the car window. "You should head back first," he told her. Ella's expression through the rolled-down window was one of reluctance. Ethan noticed my car and gestured for me to stop. Keeping my face expressionless, I rolled up the window and instructed the driver to speed up. Through the rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of Ethan's bewildered expression. For the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of joy. Later, as I settled into the bar, I heard a commotion from the crowd. Someone was proposing. A man knelt on one knee, holding a diamond ring, surrounded by friends waving glow sticks. The woman covered her mouth in surprise before nodding, tears in her eyes. The man, overjoyed, jumped up like a child, spun her around in his arms and shouted excitedly. She said yes. Cheers erupted as the man generously bought everyone in the bar a drink. Holding my glass, I couldn't help but let a tear fall. There had been no proposal when I got married. Ethan's father had been gravely ill, and his dying wish was to see the Carter and Jay families united. He had held my hand and said, "Jenna, I trust you to take care of Ethan for his father's sake." Ethan had no choice but to marry me. Unfortunately, I had to handle every detail of the wedding myself. Ethan only showed up on the day to go through the motions, making it painfully clear to everyone that this marriage was forced upon him. It was his way of humiliating me, of showing me exactly how much he despised being tied to me. The proposal I had dreamed of countless times, the wedding I had envisioned over and over, ultimately became a one-person performance. Watching the passionate love in front of me now, how could I not feel envious? In the middle of the dance floor stood a Steinway piano and a man. Wearing gold-rimmed glasses, I was playing a beautiful melody. I finished the champagne in my glass, adjusted my dress, and walked onto the stage. Leaning in slightly, I softly asked the pianist, "Can you play Summer by Joe Hesse?" The man nodded. I cleared my throat by the microphone and began to sing, my voice blending gently with the accompaniment. I heard that you're settled down, that you found a girl and you're married now. Never mind, I'll find someone like you." The song ended to a roar of applause. Roses were thrown onto the stage, filling it with splashes of red. The pianist stood up, walked toward me, and bowed slightly as he extended his hand. "May I have the honor of inviting tonight's most charming lady for a dance?" I tilted my head and gave him a good look. He wasn't badly looking. Since I'd already made up my mind to divorce Ethan Carter, why not? He'd been free to do whatever he pleased for 3 years. Why couldn't I indulge myself too? Plenty of couples in our circles led separate lives. Why should I remain faithful to a man who had never cared for me? Fueled by the alcohol coursing through me, I reached out my hand toward the man. Before I could take his hand, a cold grip encircled my wrist. Ethan stepped in between us, blocking the man's intense gaze with his broad frame. "She's not available," he said curtly, then pulled me away without looking back. The tension in the car was palpable. I rubbed my wrist, glaring at him. "What are you doing here?" He let out a cold laugh. "Couldn't I be asking you the same thing?" I turned to look at him. His lips were pressed into a thin line, and his clenched jaw made it clear he was angry. The tailored shirt he wore highlighted his perfect physique, and his chiseled profile was accentuated under the flickering streetlights. It wasn't surprising I had been utterly bewitched by this man in my previous life. Even his anger was mesmerizing, but none of that mattered. He didn't love me. No matter how I'd grown my hair long for him, learned the violin because he liked it, memorized his preferences, managed the house flawlessly, and been devoted to his parents, love simply wasn't there. Love isn't something you can force. At that moment, my motion sickness became unbearable, and it must have shown on my face. Yet Ethan didn't ask if I was okay, nor did he stop the car to let me rest. I remembered the way he used to speak to Lila Moore, his voice warm and his concern overflowing. When we finally arrived at the villa, I rushed to the bathroom and vomited. After washing my face and steadying myself, I came out to see Ethan lounging on the sofa, his eyes glued to his phone, a faint smile playing on his lips. Ethan called out without even looking up. He replied dismissively, "Hm." I took a deep breath. "Let's get a divorce." His attention finally shifted from his phone. He scoffed, his eyes narrowing as he sneered. "Really, Jenna? Another one of your games? Playing hard to get now." I met his piercing gaze, my voice calm and steady. "I'm serious. Instead of wasting each other's time, in a loveless marriage, why don't we cut our losses?" Ethan's lips curled into a mocking smile, but there was a darkness in his eyes. "You were the one who insisted on marrying me, and now you're the one asking for a divorce. Do you think my family is a revolving door? Or have you set your sights on that pretty boy from the bar tonight? No wonder you didn't stay home waiting for me this year." He loosened his tie as he approached me, towering over me. He tilted my chin up with a single finger and smirked. "What's the matter? Feeling lonely?" At 30 smack. I slapped him across the face. Ethan froze, his expression darkening as he quickly regained his composure. He grabbed my chin tightly, anger blazing in his eyes. "You dare hit me? I've already asked for a divorce. What don't I dare to do?" I snapped back, determined to break free from this endless torment. His face turned grim. "Why? Is it because I didn't celebrate your birthday with you? It's not like it's the first year I haven't. What's the big deal?" "You knew it was my birthday," I said, my voice trembling. "You've known every year that I wait for you at home, but you've never once come back. You're nothing more than the knot in my throat for a lifetime, Ethan," I said, choking back my tears. "You've relied on the fact that I love you to treat me this way." Taking a deep breath, I forced the tears back and steadied my voice. "Now listen carefully. I don't love you anymore. I want a divorce." Something was off with Ethan Carter, very off. Ever since I brought up divorce, the man who used to come home only once every 6 months was suddenly returning every few days. I couldn't help but ask him about it. "This is my house. Why wouldn't I come back?" he retorted, as though it were the most obvious thing in the world. There was even one instance where he got drunk and got into a fight. One of his friends called me to intervene. To be clear, his group of rowdy friends had always acted like I didn't exist. When I arrived, to my surprise, they greeted me respectfully, addressing me as sister-in-law. The altercation had been with a group of trainees who, as it turned out, had been betting on which actress would win Ethan's favor, and when I would finally be cast aside. In that moment, I understood why Ethan had been angry. He was likely preparing to settle down with Lila Moore, and didn't want anyone bringing up his past. Those people, however, had misunderstood. Why call me for this? I snapped. One of his friends scratched his head awkwardly. Well, sister-in-law, they were talking bad about you, so Ethan stepped in for you. Can you calm him down? We don't want this to get out of hand. I laughed coldly. First of all, you've got the wrong person. Second, they can say whatever they want. It doesn't bother me. Don't use me as an excuse. Lastly, what they're saying is true. With that, I turned and left. Behind me, Ethan's voice rang out, laced with anger. Who told you to call her? One of his friends mumbled. You were the one who said earlier that Jenna has always been and will always be Mrs. Carter. Get out of here. Ethan barked. A crash followed, and I turned back to see a glass bottle shattering on the ground. Ethan was staring at me. His eyes filled with an emotion I couldn't decipher. Since I had proposed divorce, I felt like I had come alive again. I threw myself into organizing my assets and planning my life post-divorce. I came across an old list I'd written, 50 things to do with Ethan. Pulling it out of a pile of old documents, I crossed out his name and began planning how to complete those items on my own. Just as I finished the third task, Ethan unexpectedly tossed an employment contract onto the table. Join the secretary's office at Carter Group, he said. I looked at him skeptically, wondering what kind of game he was playing. Still, since I'd been assessing his assets anyway, working at his company would give me better access. Ethan's expression was stiff, his tone cold. Don't overthink it. My mother suggested it. At the mention of his mother, a pang of regret hit me. In my previous life, my mother-in-law had been exceptionally kind to me, staunchly supporting me even when Ethan and Ella were trying to be together. She had been the second largest obstacle in their so-called love story. Even when Ella got pregnant, she had refused to let her into the Carter family. Thinking about it now, I felt a sense of loss. What a pity to lose such a wonderful mother-in-law. I happily started my new position, but on my second day, I ran into Ella outside the building, holding a cup of coffee. I pretended not to notice her and walked past, only for her to call out, Miss Jong, can we talk? I stopped and looked at her. She clearly knew who I was. If she could call me by name, I didn't think we had anything to talk about. I don't think we have anything to talk about, I said, waving her off. Miss Jong, I want to propose a partnership, she said, her tone low. Mr. Carter has been bewitched by a shameless woman lately. This woman keeps setting me up, making him think I've been bullying her. Now he won't even see me. And what does this have to do with me? I asked flatly. Ella's voice sharpened. Even if I can't have Mr. Carter, I won't let that woman have him either. I think our goals are aligned. No, I interrupted, shaking my head. I don't care who he's with. He and I live our own separate lives. Before I could finish, I saw Ella's eyes widen in shock. Turning around, I was greeted by Ethan Carter's cold, expressionless face. You're blacklisted, he said flatly, tossing the words out like a casual remark before walking away. I turned back to Ella, who now seemed to have pieced something together. I've been tricked by that shameless woman again, she hissed. Miss Jung, she continued. It was her who told me your identity. She did it to provoke me into confronting you. Mr. Carter was supposed to go on a business trip today, but I bet she lured him here too. The more Ella spoke, the more ridiculous it all sounded. Who exactly are you talking about? I asked, exasperated. Who else? That college girl, Ella Moore. Ella spat, her voice trembling with fury. I mowed over her words as I entered the office. I had kept a low profile since joining the company. While everyone knew I came from a wealthy background, they didn't know I was Miss Carter. They assumed I was just another rich girl killing time, and were naturally eager to stay on my good side. Gossiping was one way to bond with me. Today, however, the atmosphere in the office felt tense. Curious, I asked my desk mate Chris what was going on. He gestured with his chin toward the manager's office. The boss is tearing into the new intern. Following his gaze, I saw AA, the department manager, sitting in the boss's chair, massaging her temples in frustration. Leah Moore, dressed in an innocent white dress, stood nearby, her eyes red and brimming with tears. Chris leaned in conspiratorially. You missed it yesterday, Jenna. The boss took her out personally, so you didn't get to see the drama. This in turn is something else. Rumor has it she was brought in by the boss himself. No one knows what her background is. If she just kept her head down and didn't bother anyone, it wouldn't be so bad. But she keeps talking about being independent and self-reliant, pestering AA for tasks every day, and she screws up every single one, leaving AA to clean up after her. Today must be another screw-up. Just wait, she'll probably come out crying again. If you didn't know better, you'd think someone was bullying her. As Chris finished, the sound of papers being slammed onto the desk reverberated through the office. Why are you crying again? AA's voice was sharp and irritated. Can you stop pulling this act every time? Have I ever bullied you? I told you this project was important, that you weren't ready for it, but you insisted on taking it, even dragging the boss into it. Now that you've messed it up, all you can do is cry. If you want to cry, save it for the boss. I'm done cleaning up after you. I really tried. I really worked hard. Leah sputtered, choking on her words. Tried? Worked hard? I told you from the start not to take on something you couldn't handle. You said you were serious, but you couldn't even do basic calculations correctly. You said you worked hard. Fine, let me show you what real effort looks like. AA suddenly raised her voice. Jenna, come in here. Bring the flowchart you made. Startled, I grabbed my files and walked into the office. Chris gave me a sympathetic look as if to say good luck. AA took my files and tossed them onto the desk in front of Leah. Leah Moore, take a look. This is what serious and hardworking actually looks like. Jenna joined us just yesterday, and I gave her a project today. She's already mapped out the process for every similar case on the market, and you? All you do is cry. AA's voice was sharp and cutting. Let me be clear. If this keeps happening, it's either you or me who's leaving. Leah's eyes widened further as she glanced at me, a mix of embarrassment and surprise on her face. Miss Zhang, she stammered. Do you know each other? AA raised an eyebrow. Perfect. If you know Jenna, then this is what a competent employee looks like. When I left A's office, Lila caught up with me and insisted on taking me out for coffee. It was strange. Ever since I had helped her out before, she had been trying to get close to me. She was overly warm toward me, always finding excuses to chat. My repeated indifference and cold responses did little to deter her enthusiasm. While I understood that the events of the previous life weren't entirely her fault, I still didn't want any involvement with her. Yet she was persistent, clinging to my sleeve as if refusing would make her burst into tears. Not wanting to become the center of attention, I reluctantly followed her to the cafe inside the building. This cafe was usually reserved for executives and access required a key card. Lila Moore pulled out a black employee card to unlock the door. If I wasn't mistaken, that card belonged to Ethan Carter. We sat down, and I was still trying to figure out how to start when she preempted me. Jenna, I'm pregnant, she said, her tone confident. A flash of clarity struck me. Lila hadn't brought me here to discuss any issues. She wanted to confront me. She already knew Ethan was my husband. While I had been observing her, she had been quietly studying me in return. Understanding her motives, I looked at her anew and finally noticed the shift in her demeanor. Her gaze no longer avoided mine. She had gained confidence, likely because she had Ethan Carter, the man who could solve all her problems, wrapped around her finger. I let out a cold laugh. So is this your way of bragging to me that you're pregnant as his mistress? Jenna, don't say it so harshly, Lila replied, brushing away her tears. A smug expression crept onto her face as she placed her hand on her stomach. I'm only telling you this for your own good. You're capable and come from a good family. Leaving a man who doesn't love you means you can find someone better. Besides, Ethan and our baby deserve a complete family. And let's be honest, Ethan never loved you. How can I be the other woman when you're the one he never loved? The unloved one is the real outsider in this relationship. Her words made me reconsider everything that had happened in my previous life. Perhaps my misfortune hadn't been as simple as I thought. Lila wasn't some innocent flower. She had her own schemes. Thank you for showing me how much variety there is among people, I said with a sardonic smile. To fall for someone as shameless and foolish as you. I almost feel sorry for Ethan's taste. With that, I stood up, unwilling to waste any more time on her. Lila grabbed my arm, her voice trembling with sobs. "Jenna, please don't be angry. It's all my fault." As she tugged at me, she suddenly stumbled and fell backward to the floor. "Lila!" Ethan's voice rang out. I turned to see him striding toward us, his face a storm of fury. He swept Lila into his arms, glaring at me. "Jenna, what did you do to her?" His accusatory tone was all too familiar, memories of our countless arguments from my past flooding back. Faye surfaced each one, starting with Ethan's harsh demands. "Did you spread the rumors online calling Ella a homewrecker? Did you go to her school and cause a scene? What did you tell my mother to make her so prejudiced against LLA? I'm telling you now, no matter what you say or do, it won't change how I feel about LLA. It'll only make me despise you more." Back then I had done nothing, but now I couldn't help but suspect Ella orchestrated everything herself. Taking a deep breath, I looked at her calmly. "Why don't you tell him what exactly I did to you?" Clutching her stomach, Ella whimpered. "Ethan, my stomach hurts so much. I'm scared." Ethan shot me a venomous glare. "Jenna, if anything happens to Ella..." Before he could finish, Ella let out another weak cry. Ethan's expression darkened further, and he carried her swiftly toward the elevator. I stood there, taking deep breaths to calm myself. What on earth was this mess? On the way home, I received a message from LLA. "Jenna, I'm okay now, but Ethan insists on staying at the hospital to take care of me." I told him to go home, but he wouldn't listen. Attached was a photo of Ethan peeling an apple for her. His head lowered in concentration. Disgusted, I tossed my phone aside but couldn't resist picking it up again to send Ethan a message. "When are we finalizing the divorce?" By the time I got home, I had cooled off a bit. If it weren't for the need to sort out our assets, I would have moved out long ago. Taking advantage of Ethan's absence, I went into his study and powered on his computer. I had observed for a long time and knew Ethan's computer password was his birthday. Without hesitation, I copied all the files over to a flash drive. I would sort through them later. Once that was done, I picked up a suitcase and began packing. While going through my things, I came across a surprising number of old items. Photos taken by various guests on our wedding day, letters I had written to Ethan, cookbooks I had bought to learn how to make his favorite dishes, and countless other remnants of a love that no longer existed. Keeping these things around would only add to my frustration. I gathered them into a pile and burned them all. I packed up my valuables and left a divorce agreement on his desk. I only requested the properties and shares that had been part of my dowry, seeking a clean and swift end to this miserable marriage. If Ethan had any sense, he would sign without issue. If not, I had prepared backup plans. As I stepped out of the car, my phone rang. Ethan's voice came through sharp and accusatory. "Jenna, what did you say to my mother?" Here we go again. I frowned, but this time I remained calm. I didn't say anything. Then why would my mom go to LLA and cause a scene? LLA was so upset she fell unconscious. She's seriously ill now. If anything happens to her, what does that have to do with me? I cut him off and ended the call. Under my breath, I muttered a curse. After moving into my new place, I went out for dinner. Just as I stepped out of the residential area, I heard someone call my name, "Jenna." I turned to look, but before I could react, a cloth was pressed over my mouth and I blacked out. When I regained consciousness, I found myself tied up in an abandoned warehouse. The rope was so tight that I couldn't move. I could hear footsteps approaching, so I quickly shut my eyes and pretended to be unconscious. "Brother Lynn, do you really think that Carter guy will back down for this woman?" Lila said he would, another voice replied. "She wouldn't lie to me. Just go, leave the rest to me. I'll make sure this stays under control." Listening to their conversation, I suddenly remembered an incident from my previous life. Carter Corporation had acquired an old textile factory to transform it into a modern automated production facility. The renovation meant that at least half of the factory's workers would lose their jobs. Lila's adoptive father had worked there his entire life, and the workers were unwilling to leave. They organized a group to block the factory's redevelopment. The standoff had been tense until Ethan discovered that one of the leaders was Lila's adoptive father. Not only did he offer generous severance packages, but he also helped those unwilling to leave find new jobs. Everyone praised Lila for having such a good daughter. It was said that after this incident, Lila, who had always been ambivalent, became entirely devoted to Ethan. The man speaking now was undoubtedly Lila's adoptive father. Before long, the other men left, and only Lila's adoptive father remained. A bucket of cold water was thrown on my face, forcing me to wake up. Holding a wooden club in his hand, he stared at me darkly. "Transfer me $200. I spat out the dirty water from my mouth. "I don't have that kind of money." Bang! The club came down hard and I thought I might die. As he raised the club again, I shouted, "Wait! Untie me first. I can unlock my phone with my fingerprint." He hesitated for a moment, then seemed to decide that I couldn't escape and untied me. I picked up my phone. "I can only transfer $10 at a time." "There's a limit," I said, stalling as I began transferring small amounts one by one. While doing so, I spoke, "I know why you kidnapped me. It's about the factory, right? You didn't need to go this far. Ethan is obsessed with your daughter. If he knew you were Lila's father, he would definitely back down. You didn't have to take this risk." Just then his phone rang. "Brother Lin, the Carter guy says as long as the hostage is safe, he'll agree to our terms." Lila's adoptive father paused before replying, "Fine." Not long after, the phone rang again. This time his expression softened. He spoke gently into the phone. "Don't worry, Lila. I have her here. Everything will be fine." I knew it. This was all my idea, Lila's adoptive father said, his voice trembling. "It has nothing to do with her. I won't let anyone ruin her happiness." His sudden agitation made my heart sink. No wonder he wanted me to transfer money. He planned to kill me and flee. In my past life, I had researched Lila Moore's background. Her biological parents had divorced, and her current father was her adoptive one. People often remarked that her adoptive father doted on her more than any biological parent ever could. Seeing the madness in his eyes now, an unsettling suspicion arose in my mind. While he had been on the phone earlier, I had managed to send my location to several contacts. All I needed was to stall for a little more time, but there wasn't enough time. Lila's adoptive father threw his phone aside, picked up the wooden club again, and started toward me. "It's all because of you. Lila wouldn't be suffering like this if it weren't for you. She loves Ethan Carter so much, but he refuses to divorce you. If you're dead, she can marry him and finally be happy." The next blow landed, pain surging through my body. I closed my eyes, despair washing over me. Just before I lost consciousness, I thought I heard Ethan's voice. When I woke up, I was in a hospital room. Ethan was sitting beside me, disheveled, his face unshaven and tired. The moment I moved, his eyes opened and he grasped my hand, his voice filled with relief. "Jenna, you're awake. How do you feel?" "It hurts," I whispered weakly. "Where does it hurt?" "I'll call the doctor," he said urgently. "All right." Ethan left the room and shortly after Lila entered, wheeling herself in. I eyed her wearily. "What do you want?" Tears streamed down her face. "Jenna, I'm begging you. My father didn't mean it. Please forgive him." I nodded slowly. "I know he didn't mean it. The one who planned this was you." Lila's expression froze, then crumbled into a pained, innocent look. "Jenna, what are you talking about? I've been in the hospital all this time trying to protect my pregnancy. Don't bother pretending anymore," I said coldly. "Getting close to Ethan Carter was your plan all along, wasn't it? Why would a university student like you stoop so low to become a mistress? You don't know anything." Lila snapped, gripping the arms of her wheelchair tightly. "I've loved him for a long time." She finally admitted it. It turned out that Lila had an older sister, Heather, who had followed their father after their parents' divorce. Heather had been Ethan's ex-girlfriend, and the two sisters had remained in contact. Heather had shared every detail of her relationship with Ethan with Lila, but Ethan's family couldn't accept Heather's background and forced him to break up with her. Around the same time, Ethan's father fell gravely ill, and fate led to our marriage. Unable to cope with heartbreak, Heather had taken her own life. "You have no idea," Lila said, her voice trembling. "When I first saw Ethan's picture, I fell in love with him. To honor my sister, I changed my name to Lila Moore. I endured the disgusting advances of my adoptive father just to get money for violin lessons, the instrument Heather excelled at. I copied everything about her, perfecting my skills so that when I met Ethan, he would notice me immediately. She sneered, her eyes filled with contempt. And you, Jenna, you're nothing but a placeholder wife. Your family's wealth and connections, if you're smart, you'll step aside. Maybe then I'll show mercy and let Ethan give you a little more in the divorce settlement. Lila wheeled closer to me, her smile smug. If you're smart, you'll realize you can't beat me. You can't win against someone who's already dead. Suddenly, she raised her voice. Jenna, I'm begging you, my father's a good man. He didn't mean to hurt you. Then, as if on cue, she tried to stand but collapsed heavily to the floor. Blood pooled beneath her, staining the pristine hospital floor. Ethan and several doctors rushed in at the same time. Lila clutched Ethan's hand, her voice faint and trembling. Ethan, please ask Jenna to forgive my father. Please save him. Ethan, clearly panicked, helped the medical team rush her into the emergency room. By the afternoon, Ethan returned to my room, his face grim, his usual confidence shaken. Ethan spoke quietly. Lila had a miscarriage. And what does that have to do with me? I snapped, barely containing my anger. Do you think I caused it? Both times you were there, Ethan. If you dare pin this on me, I swear you'll regret it. He stayed silent for a long moment, then suddenly said, Can't you let her father off the hook? I raised an eyebrow and cut him off. Ethan turned his head, avoiding my gaze, and gave a small nod. No way, I replied with a cold laugh. Not only will I press charges against her father, but if you don't sign the divorce papers today, I'll take you to court too. Why? He asked, his voice heavy with confusion. Why? I echoed, almost laughing at his audacity. Because you've trampled all over my dignity. When I agreed to this marriage, I didn't know anything about Heather. It was your weakness and her extreme actions that led to your tragedy. And yet you shifted all your hatred onto me. A bystander, you've tortured me emotionally for 6 years, using my love for you as a weapon. Am I not a victim in all of this? Now you're accusing me of causing a miscarriage and asking me to forgive the person who hurt me. Ethan, the biggest mistake of my life was marrying you. But I've learned my lesson. Now it's time to fix it. Enough, Jenna! Ethan shouted, cutting me off. Then, like a deflated balloon, he sank onto the sofa, covering his face with his hands. I'm sorry, he murmured. I froze. Never in this lifetime or the previous one had I heard Ethan Carter apologize to me. I realized my feelings for you a long time ago, he admitted, his voice strained. But every time I felt something for you, I was overwhelmed with guilt, like I was betraying Heather. She gave her life to prove her love for me. So every time I felt drawn to you, I pushed you away with coldness, trying to suppress it. It was my cowardice that made me blame you for her death. And when Lila showed up looking so much like Heather, I thought it was her coming back to me. That's why I couldn't help myself. When I saw the divorce papers you left, I felt my entire world collapse. The love I tried to suppress surged forward, drowning me. Jenna, I've fallen. In love with you, he paused, his voice breaking. I only feel guilt for Lila. Even when the doctor told me she miscarried, a small part of me felt relieved. Lila has chronic kidney disease, and the miscarriage caused severe complications. She needs a kidney transplant or she won't live long. I failed her sister. I can't let her die too. Please, Jenna, just give me some time. Let me take care of this and then we can start over. Ethan, I said, massaging my temples, exhaustion setting in. You're too greedy. This marriage is over. If you won't sign the papers, expect a court summons. I won't divorce you, Jenna, he said firmly. It didn't take long to figure out why Ethan was so confident. He terminated all collaborative projects between Carter Corporation and my family's business. I was in the middle of completing my discharge paperwork when my father called, his voice tinged with anxiety. Jenna, have you and Ethan been fighting? He just called off all our joint projects. I hadn't expected history to repeat itself. In my past life, Ethan had done this because I refused to divorce him. This time it was because he wouldn't let me go. I understood my father's worry. Ethan's scorched earth tactics had nearly ruined the Young family in the previous life, forcing us to sell off shares to recover. All right, Ethan, I muttered to myself. This time you'll know what it feels like to lose everything. When we got married, his family gave me a 10% share in Carter Corporation as part of my dowry. It was time to put that to use. After leaving the hospital, I walked through the small garden and unexpectedly spotted Lila and her adoptive father. Lila sat in a wheelchair, looking pale, while her father stood beside her with an obsequious expression, his eyes filled with suppressed fervor. "I told you not to come looking for me," Lila scolded him. "Do you know how much Ethan spent to get you out on bail? I was worried about you," he said cautiously. "I just wanted to check on you." "Well, now you've seen me," Lila snapped. "Ethan is taking great care of me. Get out of here now." Lila's adoptive father reached out toward her, but she shoved him away in disgust. "Don't touch me, you creep. Don't think I don't know your filthy thoughts," she spat venomously. "If you were so desperate, why didn't you just assault Jenna? She's the one who caused my miscarriage and killed your grandchild." "Lila," he stammered, his voice trembling. "Was it really her? Or did you do it yourself?" "It was her," Lila hissed, her voice low but seething with anger. "She thought I was carrying Ethan's child. If you have the guts, go kill her." I covered my mouth in shock, trembling as I stopped the recording on my phone and slipped away unnoticed. Instead of returning to the company, I arranged private meetings with board members who had conflicts with Ethan. My goal was to turn them into allies, promising them greater benefits and influence if they supported my cause. When my father learned of my plans, he gave me his full backing. He'd always encouraged me to focus on my career, but foolishly, I ignored him after my marriage. Now, looking at his graying hair, I realized I needed to step up and ensure he could enjoy his later years in peace. Late that night, after finishing work, I parked my car and was walking toward my apartment when a shadow lunged at me. A glinting blade slashed through the air, aiming for my body. 2 bodyguards stationed nearby stepped in immediately. They subdued the attacker, forcing him to the ground. Shaken, I yanked off his mask. As I had suspected, it was Leia's adoptive father. The sound of police sirens filled the air outside. I smirked. The timing was perfect. The next morning, a shareholder representative filed a formal motion accusing Ethan Carter of overpaying for the textile factory acquisition and suggesting embezzlement. A report was sent to the relevant authorities. Carter Corporation's stock price plummeted, and my carefully prepared short sell fund made a massive profit. The media wasted no time publishing salacious headlines about Ethan's alleged misconduct. Reports surfaced that he fabricated evidence to protect his lover's father. Investigations into Ella Moore's background followed, unearthing shocking revelations. As it turned out, Heather's death wasn't a suicide. My investigation had unexpectedly led me to Ella, who had fallen on hard times since being blacklisted. Desperate, she handed me a complete set of evidence. "Miss Zhang," she said, "this time our goals align perfectly." The evidence was old, and much of it wouldn't hold up in court, but it was more than enough to sway public opinion. While I released the information to online news outlets, I took the most damning pieces directly to Ethan. Ella was lying in a hospital bed, about to be wheeled into surgery within the hour. When she saw me, her face went pale, and she clung tightly to Ethan's hand. "It's okay," Ethan reassured her, patting her hand gently. "Focus on the surgery. Everything will be fine." Before the surgery, I said coolly, "How about I tell you a story?" "I don't want to hear anything," Ella screamed, her voice trembling with panic. "Fine, don't listen then," I replied calmly. Ethan turned to me, his tone pleading. "Jenna, please don't agitate her. This is a life or death situation. Can't this wait until after the surgery?" "I'm afraid not," I said with a cold smile. "After all, I want her to know what it feels like to have hope ripped away." "Jenna!" Ethan shouted, trying to stop me, but I ignored him. I played the recording on my phone. "If you were so desperate, why didn't you just assault Jenna? She's the one who caused my miscarriage and killed your grandchild. It was her. She thought I was carrying Ethan's child. If you have the guts, go kill her." Ella's face turned ashen. She hadn't expected me to record her panicking. She threw herself into Ethan's arms. "Ethan, it's not true," she cried, her voice trembling. "That's all fake. It's edited. You have to believe me." Ethan's face darkened, his eyes stormy with rage. A dangerous energy radiated from him. "Do you know how Heather died?" I asked, my voice low. "Cold. She didn't commit suicide. She was killed by her loving little sister." I threw a stack of documents onto Ethan's desk. Mr. Carter, don't look. Lila screamed, rushing forward to snatch the documents and tear them to shreds. Shred them. I've got more copies, I said with a calm smile. Ethan wasn't stupid. Seeing Lila's panicked reaction, he knew I wasn't lying. It was almost laughable. The person he had cherished and protected was the very one who had killed his pure love. He stared at her, his gaze cold and piercing. In the next second, he grabbed her by the throat. Lila Moore, how dare you? He growled. Seeing Lila gasping for breath, I finally motioned for the bodyguards to pull him away. Are you still going to save her? I asked coldly. No. I wish she were dead. Ethan yelled, his fury uncontainable. Well, that's easy enough. Why get your hands dirty? Call the hospital now and donate your kidney, I suggested mockingly. This time Ethan didn't hesitate. No. Mr. Carter. Lila clung to him, desperation and disbelief filling her eyes. Please don't. Ethan kicked her away without a second thought. I crouched down to look her in the eye. How does it feel to lose hope? Does it hurt? I'll also release that recording online. Even if you die, you'll carry the weight of your crimes and die under the condemnation of the public. No. Lila cried out, a guttural sound of despair. There's one more thing you might not know, I added, my voice steady. I filed for divorce long ago. Ethan refused to sign. He loved your sister and later he loved me. He never loved you. Lila clutched her chest, her lips trembling, her breath shallow. I straightened up and walked away. Ethan called out to me, but I didn't look back. Lila's death came sooner than I expected. She didn't die from her illness but was murdered by her own mother. Her mother had stumbled upon Lila's online expose and discovered that Lila was the one who had killed Heather. She confronted Lila, demanding to know why she had hurt her sister. Lila had replied, venom in her voice. Because I couldn't stand it. Why did she get to live with Dad and have a normal life, a perfect boyfriend, while I had to live under your control, surviving on scraps? And you turned a blind eye. Didn't I tell you how terrifying Ling's gaze was? Didn't I beg for your help? And what did you say? You mocked me for being young and scheming. I lived every day in fear of that man. When he held me, when he pretended to kiss me goodnight, when he wiped the sweat off my forehead in the summer, you knew. But you refused to admit it. You thought ignoring it would make it go away. You're a failure, a terrible mother. If I could choose, I'd have killed you instead. Enraged, Lila's mother lashed out, cutting her artery with a fruit knife in a moment of fury. Though doctors intervened quickly, Lila's late-stage kidney disease and weak will to live sealed her fate. She didn't survive. Her mother, now mentally unstable, confessed everything to the police in a series of incoherent statements, piecing together the truth. Meanwhile, Ethan learned that I had shorted Carter Corporation stock and then bought shares at a low price, becoming the largest shareholder. When I filed for divorce, he fell into severe depression. Ethan's mother pleaded with me several times to visit him. After much hesitation, I agreed. When I saw him, I barely recognized him. He was gaunt, lifeless, a shadow of the man he once was. He lay on the bed, his eyes vacant, only perking up slightly when he saw me. I said a few perfunctory words out of respect for his mother, then prepared to leave. Jenna! Ethan called out suddenly, his voice fragile. If I died, would you remember me? I turned back and replied seriously, no. Don't try to use death to burden me with guilt. Choosing to die and escape reality is your decision, and it has nothing to do with me. If you die, I'll forget you soon enough. I'll have a new life, a new lover, and I won't repeat your mistakes by punishing my future partner for my past. So you should try to live. Maybe years from now, we can meet again and smile at each other as strangers. Ethan covered his face with his hands and cried like a child. Sunlight streamed into the room. I glanced up at the bright sky. Today was a sunny day. Tomorrow would be too, and the day after that as well. Thank you for following this story. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next video.